Hey, this is Diana, and I'm here to say thank you for listening to the first two episodes of Blooming After Grooming. We have a few more pre recorded episodes that we plan to release in the next few weeks. We've gotten a lot of great feedback from our listeners, so thank you for that. Sarah and I are very glad to know that the podcast is reaching people and is being received well. We hope that you will give the show a follow so that you can stay updated whenever new episodes come out. With that, here is episode 3. We know that you are aware that you're tuning into a podcast about abuse, but this episode in particular gets into a little bit more details, and there's also talk of self-harm and rape. So as always, please listen with care, and if you need help or are looking for resources, we like to recommend RAINN, RAINN.org. And I also mention a new resource in this episode called helpingsurvivors.org.
Diana, I got your number from your resume on LinkedIn. My name is Sarah, and I'm an old student of... And like you, we had a relationship. I don't know the circumstances of your relationship with him, but it concerns me to see his behavior continued long after I knew him. I'm curious if you would be willing to talk to me about your experience. If not, I respect that.
Sarah, I am at a loss of words, but also have so much to say. Yes, I would love to talk to you about this. Were you a student in Iowa? This is Diana.
This is Sarah.
And this is Blooming After Grooming, our podcast. So we have returned. Okay, so let me just do a quick recap on what we've done thus far. We've got an intro episode. What is this podcast about? Then we have episode 1 about Sarah, episode 2, Diana, and now we're on our episode 3, sliding doors, correct?
Correct.
Woo! Okay, cool.
Great recap. I just said recap, by the way.
You did just say recap. That is staying in.
We're clearly professionals. So our idea today, which I forgot about the last time we talked about it, even though I was the one that named the episode, is sliding doors. So kind of talking about, we obviously shared this strange experience of being groomed and assaulted by the same teacher, a few years apart. But we're obviously two different people who have two very different lives and have been down different paths, and kind of just talking about what the similarities are and the differences of our lives going, out of high school into our 20s. And we also kind of left off the last full episode where we were talking about Diana's story on a bit of a, pause button moment, because Diana's story is a lot longer than my story. I still don't feel like we have a term. Entangled, snared by.
I know.
Snared by might be something that feels trapped, not good. I don't want to say relationship. I don't want to say any of those words. We'll say ensnared for now. With the teacher for about a year. You, unfortunately, were ensnared for quite a bit longer. So we're going to talk about kind of your experience going into graduation from high school and heading into your 20s while still being in this, what you thought was a romantic relationship with an equal, but we now know is the complete opposite of that. So tell us a little bit about where you were at, heading into graduations from high school. Were you applying to colleges? Were you looking to move out of the area? Were you looking to, kind of stay in the area? What were your hopes, dreams, and aspirations?
I first just want to agree with you that terminology and just what words to use. I think in the intro episode, you touched on how some people really don't like the word survivor. Some don't like the word victim. So, so I think that's an important thing that hopefully we can get into in a future episode. But yeah, I really like the term snared. Is it just snared or ensnared?
Ensnared, right? To be snared, ensnared. Again, if
Ensnared.
we had a
Okay.
better English teacher, we might know. It's gonna be my defense
This
to
is
every
true.
time I say something wrong for the rest of my life.
I also snared makes me think of, Harry Potter, the Devil's Snare. It's
Oh.
one of the challenges that they have to do to get to the anyway. So, snared. I actually, I don't even think we talked about senior year. Okay, so let's go back to senior year. I met him junior year, grooming started. He got my number, he started giving me gifts, he started texting me and emailing me. Senior year, I got his address because someone wrote it on the board and went to his apartment. And in my senior year was the first year that sexual assault took place
Mm,
in my car outside his apartment. And so that was happening for the last semester of my senior year. And around this time, I knew that I was going to go to college because that was just never not an option for me. Education was definitely something my parents pushed, and like higher education especially, they saw it as a way out of being poor and, not having a lot of resources or options. And so I knew I was going to go to college. I just wasn't sure like where or how I was going to pay for it. But I did apply and get into Southern Illinois University. And I did end up changing my mind last minute to stay a little bit closer to home. And honestly, the main contributor of that was being able to stay near the abuser, near the teacher. And just sidebar for our listeners to consider, even though like Sarah and I have talked to each other about our experiences, and even though like we have also talked to like our therapists and other people, a lot of times uh, like for example, like what I'm saying right now, I don't know the last time I've said it out loud. So there's a lot of like for me anyway, I don't want to speak for you, Sarah, but sometimes like realizations or just like I don't know, it's just a lot of this is like happening in real time. You know
sure,
what
and
I
I
mean?
mean, I think it's like, it comes back in weird flashes, and I think we kinda talked about that in the intro episode of sometimes there's things that come back to you that you don't honestly think you've really ever thought about since the day that it happened, right? Like, there's these little seeds, and then they kind of blossom in the middle of you talking, and you're like, "Oh my god, that's right. This detail that I forgot about."
Yeah.
Also, we are talking about traumatic things, so it can just kind of slow your roll a little bit because it's, bringing back feelings and, can be triggering and just kinda gets a little stodgy in your brain sometimes. So, yeah, I definitely get that.
Totally, because even now, just saying out loud, like, admitting to you like, it is embarrassing, like, I feel uncomfortable and embarrassed that I stayed here locally for, quote, unquote, "a man," for a
Mhm.
boy.
But you are
Like, that
also a
is embarrassing to me.
but that's because you are now a grown ass adult woman, right? Who would try to talk
Yeah,
a young person out of that. But at the time, you were a young girl. Like, I mean, I think it's like everything else. It's like,
I
I
know.
don't want you to ever feel embarrassed because I don't think it's something to be embarrassed about. I think it's something you can be bummed out that that's the way that it went down. You know what I mean? But like, I don't know that you have to
Yeah,
feel like embarrassed because you were being like wildly manipulated by somebody. Like, he tried to talk me out of going to
mhm.
college. I grew up in a super small town where there was fucking nothing to do and there was nowhere to go. And I was all like, later days, brother. My motive was different, right? Because I was going from like a town of 1,000 people in fucking rural Iowa. There was nothing to stick around for me. If I had grown up in a more urban area, like the idea of sticking around would be a lot more tangible, right? Because there's a lot more opportunities, there's shit to
Mhm.
do. Like, I just think, it's not apples to apples.
I appreciate that, and I know that you're not judging me, and it's wild to me how buried and how like entrenched some of these feelings of shame just are, and
Mhm.
realizing that in real time is an interesting experience.
Well,
But yeah, no, I didn't.
the only person that should be ashamed is him.
Yes, this
Carry
is
on.
yes, thank you. I appreciate that, and I'm not gonna laugh after saying that. Thank you, Sarah. I appreciate you saying
Oh
that.
my God, I need to learn that skill. Wow. That was an impressive
I'm
therapy
gonna
moment.
smile real I'm gonna smile real cheesy, but I'm
Yeah.
not gonna laugh, nervous laughter. Yeah, so I did not go away to college. I did go to, and this is another thing I think about, which is fucked up. I had it in my mind that I had to do a university. Like I could not go to community college. That was not, and it was not because my parents were saying that. It was not because my friends were saying that. I was hearing that from the teacher, and I was hearing that from other teachers, that like the local community college was for the kind of kid that this and that, like can't, isn't smart enough, doesn't have the grades. Like it's just, there was this narrative. That's what I mean. The teachers were so fucked up at the school, uh, that like they would talk shit about the kids that were going to the local community college.
Mhm.
Nowadays, like I was a school counselor. I told all my kids, start off at community college. It- There's okay, anyway. So yeah, I felt that I could not do community college. Like I had to go to university. So I did stay by closer, and I did go somewhere. I'm trying to, not say names, nearby. So I was able to still see him. But I do remember, and I don't remember if we've talked about this, but there was like this strange shift in him like immediately after I graduated. So not immediately after I graduated, because similar to you, Sarah, when I turned 18, um, he made me a birthday dinner and we watched a movie at his place, and that was like my 18th birthday
What movie did you
present of
watch?
sorts, I suppose. The English
Oh
Patient.
my god. He showed me, and mine was what was that, the 28th hour or whatever?
25th hour, I
25th
think.
hour, which was like Edward Norton and
Yeah.
about a dude that's like trying to shtup a teenager the whole time. It's got this whole
Ugh,
creepy undercurrent that's
so
very
fucking
troubling.
gross.
Yeah, that part, the birthday party, if you could call it that, the birthday assault correlation is a pretty big bummer. Like that bums me out pretty hard. The fact that like we both
Mhm.
lost our 18th birthday. Like that should be a big day that you're like spending with your friends or your family, or like a memorable positive experience, and instead it's like a pretty awful gross memory for both of us. Was your 18th birthday the first time he let you into his apartment?
Yes.
Okay.
Like at all the other times, my senior year, that last semester, my senior year, we were outside his apartment in my car.
Cuz that's
Like
okay.
he,
It's okay to sexually
right?
assault a
Is
student in the car.
this? Yeah.
It's okay.
It's makes total sense. I really don't know. I do not know what that was, or like what he told himself,
Mhm.
like how he justified it, but nope, he didn't let me into his apartment until my 18th birthday, when he made me birthday meal and we watched The English Patient. So I graduated high school, my birthday's in June, and by the time that summer ended, there was definitely like a weird shift that happened. Like he was almost trying to distance himself from me, like now that I had graduated.
Mm.
But like I was still crushing, on him, thinking that this was someone who I was entering into a romantic relationship with. So of course, like I was still texting him and trying to meet up with him. I don't remember exactly how things circled back to being in a quote unquote relationship, but I do remember that summer there was just this weird period of him being like, "No, I can get in trouble." I'm like, well, it's a little late for that, dude.
Interesting. So like after you graduated, he tried to like pump the brakes.
Yeah,
Which I mean, I don't know, like if his gets his kicks by freaking creeping around on his students, like you're now no longer his student. Some of the interest for him maybe had
yeah,
waned. Cause I feel like when after I graduated, we were like really brazen. We were like, out in public together, like broad daylight, out and about. Like anybody and their brother could have seen us. And a few school employees did see us, like even just like a month or two after I graduated. So I don't know. I always wonder like how much of his behavior with you was an adjustment from what happened with me, right? Oh, I had some really close
Mhm.
calls because I was out with this girl after graduation. It got around because it did get around the school that, like, we were, quote, unquote, "together." That probably was part of the reason he left our school and went to your school, you know what I mean, is that people knew what he had done. Just wonder, like, how much of it was just, unfortunately, him learning how to get away with it better than he did the first time.
Now that you're saying that, it's connecting the dot in my mind of like, "Oh, well, what happened next?" I don't remember exactly how it circled back to being with him, but once it did, it was very like, I never left his apartment.
Mm.
You know what I mean? Like, I would come over and we would watch movies. For, like, the first 4 years of that abusive relationship, I would come over and we would just exist in his apartment.
Hmm.
So maybe, like, some of that fear of how brazen he was with you at first was, I don't know, scary enough to him to put that distance between us, but then once he did have me again, like, just kinda kept me isolated in
Yeah.
that apartment. Because it wasn't until 4 years, sorry, my mic pop just fell. Because yeah, it wasn't until 4 years after I graduated high school that we went public and, like, told our families and
See, that's wild.
my friends.
He
Yeah.
literally took me on a
Yeah.
vacation to meet his entire family within 2 months of me graduating from high school. Like, I met his family and I still had braces on.
That is so bad. That is
Like,
so
I'm
bad.
talking his grandma, his parents, his siblings who lived out of state, his nieces and nephews, his fucking, like,
Oh.
cousins. I think I went to their Christmas, dude. Like, I met his, like, cousins and aunts and uncles. Like, I met his whole fucking family, like, right away.
And what did he say? "This is my friend. This is my girlfriend.
They
This
knew
is
we were
Sarah?"
no, I mean, they knew we were together. There was no fucking doubt about that. Like, they knew we were fucking air quotes romantic relationship together. I do remember his mom being ice cold to me, like ice cold. And I remember at the time being like, "What a bitch." And then later on thinking, was it just that she was like, "What the fuck is going on?" You know what I mean? Like, I don't know how to handle this situation because this is so fucking weird. I have no idea, but, like, it was just like, looking back on it now, it's all so very fucking confusing and how, like, none of them
Mm.
said anything, and later on, like, no one said anything to you when they met you, like, "Hey, heads up, you're the 2nd fucking high school student this guy has brought home." Like, that to me is one of the more fucked up aspects of it. I don't think I would turn obviously I wouldn't given my experience, but, like, I wouldn't turn another cheek if, my brother showed up with a fucking teenager as his girlfriend. I'd be like, "Hells to the fucking no." But that's obviously largely painted by my lived experience. But you'd think if your brother showed up the 2nd time with a teenager, you'd maybe pull the teenager aside and be like, "Hey," like, this is the deal." Or you would pull your brother aside and be like, "What is your problem? Like, what is wrong with you? This is nuts," and it just doesn't seem like that happened with
No.
them that we're aware of.
No.
But I also
It
find it
it did
fascinating.
not.
I just find it fascinating that he waited for 4 years. It's weird. Like, it's such a jarring difference from I mean, we were, like, taking photos with his family and went to fucking Disney World together, like, with his sibling.
Oh my god.
Yeah, like, we're
Holy
talking
shit. No, we
substantial family gatherings, like, it was weird.
I mean, eventually I did stuff like that, never Disney World, but, eventually I, met his family and everything and his grandma and all of that, but that took, yeah, 4
Hmm.
years. So for listeners to know, I was ensnared by him from the ages of 16 to 25. But yeah, for those first 4 years after high school, so 18 through 22, um, we were secret. But also, so like my close friends and my sister knew. My parents, I don't know. I really don't think they knew until I told them, which was in 2012 when I was 22. but, like, my friends knew, but his friends, like, a lot of them didn't know, and I remember that was the thing because I was like, "Well, I want your friends to know about me," and he, like, didn't wanna tell them about me, and I do remember one time, and this was, like, after his brother got remarried, and we were at their house in Nebraska, and I got really mad at his brother because his brother said something like, "Oh, well, when you're with a real woman, you know that, like, you can't do da da da." I don't know, he said something like that, and then I got just so offended, I'm, like, 22, 23, or 24, and I was, like, so upset because I was hurt that, like, he didn't see me as a real woman or, like and or, like, as someone serious, and I think that would have been, like, a great opportunity for his brother or someone to be like, "The reason I'm saying this is
Yeah.
because."
Yeah, or that was like a passive aggressive way for him to try to be like, "Dude, you're dating a child." Like, you're not
Yeah.
but unfortunately, it comes off pointed more towards you. And same thing, it's like, I feel like his mom was like, I thought she was really bitchy to me, but I like, and I'm not trying to give
Mhm.
that lady any grace at all, but like looking back at it now and I'm like, well, was it more that she was just like, I'm not fucking okay with the fact that my 30-year-old son brought home an 18-year-old student to my house. You know what I mean? And like, I'm just going to be a bitch.
Yeah.
Like, and that's just what I'm going to do instead of actually having a grown up conversation with my grown up son. Same with the brother. It's like, instead of just saying like, oh, well, if you actually dated somebody who was your equal, which is not a dig on you because you were not his equal because he
Mhm.
was how much years older than you? Like
16.
16, dude. Like that's a huge age gap, let alone the power dynamic. Anyways,
Yeah.
so and I mean, we don't know. There's possibilities that his family did try to talk to him about it. We just never saw any of those conversations take place. So in those 4 years, you obviously had to be lying still to a lot of people in your life about
Yeah.
what you were doing, where you were, who you were with. Do you feel
Mhm.
like this is something that I have noticed in myself? And I'm curious if you also feel the same way. If that behavior carried on for you into other future relationships and became problematic of like thinking that it's okay that you have to lie about aspects of your relationship with people because that's like this learned behavior from your abuse.
That's a great question. I did have to put a lot of thought into the lies I would tell my parents, because and I mean, but it helps that for better for worse, they've always been a little hands off and standoffish. I would tell them because I was in college during this time. So my first year, I went to a university nearby, and then my second year, I went to a community college, and then my for my third and fourth year of undergrad, I went to a different university a little bit further of a commute than the first one, and so I would tell my parents that I was staying overnight because this university was like 45 minutes, maybe an hour away from where I lived. So I would tell them, like, oh, well, I'm staying at the school. They have a hotel on site for students to stay at. And I mean, I think they believed me. They never have said, oh, no, we knew you were lying. And yeah, so I would blame it on school or say that I was hanging out with other friends. And back then, there wasn't like as much of social media presence.
Mm.
And my parents are on Facebook now, but they were not back then. So, there wasn't as much, I guess, surveillance from everyone. So it was easier to keep that secret for 4 years. But it's it it is interesting. The one thing that did kinda carry over to future relationships is, like, wanting to I think part of the reason that it did take me a little bit longer than it maybe I should have for me to leave the abuser I keep calling him the abuser. He is also an abuser. The teacher, is because a lot of my family really did come to like him
Mm.
and embrace him in a way, like some of my cousins and my aunts and uncles, and it I felt like breaking up with him was also going to impact them, and I didn't want to be responsible for that. That kind of mentality, I think, did stay with me after that relationship. And then also just, and I think this is something that maybe other people can relate to, even who have not been in the situation, not wanting to share all of the flaws or darker side of someone with your close friends and family because you don't want them to worry about you.
Mm.
But yeah, what about you? Would you say that this abusive relationship set you up for a certain kind of relationship in the future or conditioned you to accept certain things in relationships?
Yeah, I mean, I would say like the next relationship I had, well, that's not true. I dated a very nice nice boy in college for like 2 or 3 months. Um who was just a good guy, you know. No real drama. We just kind of, met, had a spark, it fizzled out, we moved on. So that one was fine. But the next long-term relationship I had after getting away from the teacher ended up being an emotionally abusive relationship that through processing what happened to me with our abuser really made me realize how much like that grooming set me up perfectly to end up in the next relationship I was in. There was another big age gap. I think it was like 7 years between us. There was no power dynamic issue, like, we were just coworkers or whatever. Um, but I feel like the teacher was just such a, like, classic manipulative man child, as was the next guy that I dated, so I just feel like I just fell right back into it, like, he was too cool for school, he was, like,
Mm.
so artsy, so into me not artsy, he wanted to fucking be artsy, same thing, he was a writer who didn't fucking write, and like was so tragic and like was like kind of a music snob. Um Thought he was cooler than everybody because he was super insecure. Just classic fucking lame dude stuff.
It sounds just like the
It
teacher.
does. It really, really does. And I really never saw it until I started really processing a few years ago after finding you, like really processing all of like how I did get away from the teacher, but then listening to you talk about your relationship with him for the years that followed high school, I felt like I, in some way, didn't actually get away because I ended up recreating almost the exact same relationship with somebody else. And that felt pretty shitty to like come to terms with because I don't much to like what you just said before of it's embarrassing to admit that you let the teacher impact how the decision you made for going to college. I don't view myself as a weak person. I don't view myself as that kind of woman, right? Like everyone always says that, like, oh, these women that stay in abusive relationships and like I would never and like why do they this and why do they that? And until you've been in those situations, like you do not understand the absolute mind fuck that is living in a situation, like especially when you're living with somebody. Like it is 24/7. You're on eggshells. You do not know what's going to set them off. You're getting yelled at. You're getting things thrown at you. Like this was my other relationship. Like he threw food in my face at a restaurant and I had to like walk home for like a mile by myself. Like, what the fuck? Like, I was 20 years old. I would never in a million years know. Like, if a guy even threw food in my general direction, I would never speak to them again.
Oh,
You know what I mean? Like, it's so hard to look back and see
yeah.
yourself as this person that let somebody treat them so poorly. And it doesn't feel good. Like, it doesn't feel good. But at the same time, it can give you a lot of empathy for other people and understand why they stay in bad situations and how you get into bad situations. Because people like that are also usually pretty fucking charming, right? Like you said, like your family liked the
Mm.
teacher. Abusers are really fucking charming when they're not abusing people, usually, right? Like that's how they get you.
Yeah.
It's how they get you. If they were just terrible all the
Yeah,
time,
and groomers are really good at grooming everyone,
Yeah.
not just their like grooming other adults too.
Exactly. So for me, 100%. Like I ended up with a much older guy who definitely talked down to me, who acted like he was better than me, who I was like always kind of trying to impress or like be cool enough for him kind of crap. And then also not telling other people how bad it was because I had learned from the teacher of like, this is our secret and you have to
Mhm.
protect me and you need to keep quiet so that we can continue to have what we're having even if it's not good a majority of the time. Really it definitely like led me I think down that path of like I really wonder like if I hadn't gone through the experience with the teacher would I have ended up in that relationship when I was in college that lasted for 5 or 6 years until my mid 20s, like would I have ended up in that relationship if I hadn't learned those behaviors from our teacher. I feel like you didn't get away as fast as I did, but I also feel like I also kinda ended up in the exact same shit sandwich that you were in, so it's kind of a mind fuck a little bit. I think that when you told me about your experience with the teacher after graduation is when my aha moment was that I had essentially recreated that relationship with the guy that I ended up with. Like, that was what triggered it. I was just like, "Oh, shit." Like, I hadn't really
Mm.
because in my experience, the teacher, like, he drank and, like, he yelled at me and got really aggressive, I guess, that one time when I told him that my friend knew that we were, whatever, together in high school. But it was this one incident, right? Like, and it was this intense thing, right? So at the time, I didn't think of him as being a person with like a temper because I never really saw it besides that one time. And at the time, I felt very like, oh my God, this is my fault. I broke our trust, blah, blah, blah. Um, so in my mind, I never knew that side of him, right? Like I never saw a heavy drinker. I never saw someone yelling. But I knew that from my experience with this other person that I dated. So I feel like when you kinda started sharing that, that was kinda my aha moment, and yeah, it totally made me feel like, "Fuck, man." Like, if I hadn't been with one, I don't know that I would have ended up with the other. Even just the
Mhm.
idea of dating someone who's a lot older than you, like, that had become so normalized to me because the teacher was 12 years older than me. So dating this guy in college that was only
Mhm.
7 years older, well, shit, that's nothing. Last guy was 12 years older.
Yeah, that's
Like
half.
it had normalized age gaps, it had normalized lying, it had normalized keeping secrets, like, things that aren't fucking great for the most part, like, to have in a relationship. Yeah, it definitely was kinda messed with me, I feel like, when I learned that
Mhm.
about your experience with him. So for you, when like, in that 4 years of secretiveness with him, was that kind of behavior happening? Like, was he getting aggressive with you or, like, that kind of darker side of his personality, or did that happen later on when you guys were more public?
It happened pretty early on. Like I feel like he almost tried. He's such. I hate him so much. I feel like he tried
Let it
to
out, baby
make
girl.
his anger ish. Oh God. Like he almost trying to make his anger issues like an artistic thing about him.
Ugh.
Like, oh, I'm so tortured. I have these anger management issues. No, you're just a big man, baby.
Yeah.
So yeah, his anger issues were pretty clear. And yeah, like and it was like it's just stupid things that he would get mad about that sometimes like I still that kind of energy does seep into you if you're around
Mhm.
it all the time. And it took I'm jumping around everywhere. It took so long for me to like clean myself of that of like the want to just complain about everything, to feel entitled to like the best of the best, even though like what you put out there is garbage.
Mhm.
The drinking also was something that I noticed immediately. And he would hide bottles around the apartment, which is another weird thing that I feel like he did because his dad did it.
Oh, he
And
was
another
such a
thing that
little
I felt
drama
like
queen about his dad.
Oh, his daddy issues.
yeah.
Go to therapy,
Yeah,
bro.
it's It's the more that I look back at him, the more that I'm like, "Man, what a fucking joke of a person. If no one lives with you, why are you hiding bottles? Who are you hiding bottles from?" Just,
It's
ugh.
performative.
And then I would say, yeah, definitely the last, like, 3 years that I was with him, because after we went public, I was still with him for another 3 years. And the last, like, 2 or 3 years, I would say, um, yeah, things got pretty bad as far as, like, his drinking and yep, like, exactly what you were saying. He would throw things at me, he yelled at me, he would be yelling, spitting in my
Mm,
face, calling me names,
mhm.
kicking me out of his apartment in the winter. I slept in my car once. Yeah,
Yeah,
very unpleasant the last few
it's
years.
I'm sorry that happened to you. It's a terrible experience that unfortunately I think many people can relate to. Domestic abuse in all forms is really hard. And I know for myself, and I don't know if this is true for you, but I feel like I stayed in my relationship with this other guy, not teacher abusive relationship. I stayed for a really long time because I feel like I had ingrained the idea that, well, he doesn't hit me. That's the only form of abuse, right? Like he doesn't punch me, he doesn't hit me.
Mm,
Now, has he thrown furniture at me and called me a whore and a slut and punched walls and like thrown coffee pots at my head and shit? Yeah. Oh, he did all that, but he never landed a blow. And I feel like it took a
mm.
really long time for me to like figure out that verbal abuse is abuse and emotional abuse is abuse. And even though I wasn't physically hit, somebody throwing shit at you is a physical threat. Like that is you're not safe,
Yeah.
you know? So I don't for you if that was something that you kind of had that same experience of like you didn't like we told ourselves, "Oh, well, I was in a relationship." No, you were groomed. It's like, "Oh, well, you're not a sexual assault victim." It's like, "Yes, you are." And "Oh, well, I wasn't in an abusive relationship because he never hit me." It's like, "Yeah, well, he kind of tried to hit you with objects." Like how you
He did push me.
minimize. But yeah, like do you know what I'm saying? Like did you
Yeah.
minimize what he was doing while it was happening? And like what helped you kind of get that perspective, I guess, to realize that like, whoa, wait a minute, this is not normal. I am in an abusive relationship. Like, did you have that realization when you were in it?
I knew that I was in an unhealthy relationship. But I don't think it clicked because the same kind of thing of I was also buying that narrative of, oh, abuse only looks like bruises on your body or black eyes
Mhm.
or the very like physical graphic depictions of abuse.
My ex would belittle me and insult me and I have anxiety, right? And then he would get mad at
Mhm.
me for getting anxious. And it's like you've been yelling at me all day long. How am I not supposed to be anxious? And then he would yell at me about being anxious and it was just like, fuck you. Like you're creating this terrible situation so you then can be mad at me and you can be the victim of the situation, because that's the way that you wanna feel about it.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's complicated.
Yeah, so I knew I was in a relationship where I was not being treated well, and I didn't realize it at the time, but I started I think my abusive relationship with alcohol for sure started when I was with him,
Mm,
which is something that I think a lot about now. But I don't think I know that I did not realize the extent of the abuse or even that it was grooming until I had 5 years away from all of it, like, after I left him. But when I did leave him, it was more I just felt like I was outgrowing him. I
mm.
just felt like I knew it wasn't a relationship that was gonna be good for me and that I wanted to be in.
Yeah, I mean, I'm glad you got there. I'm glad you got to that
Thank you.
moment because not everybody does get there. Let's talk about his behavior with his students while you were with him, because
Oh,
as
yes.
Diana and I have figured out, we were the only 2 people that we are aware of that we have found that we know definitively were physically abused by this teacher, but we have a freaking laundry list of former students that have come forward with allegations of inappropriate comments, messages, propositions, just creeping them the fuck out, by vibing on them all weird. Like it's a long list and a timeline that pretty much never stopped, just even overlapping. So I want to point it out because I think in some people's minds, you could think like, okay, the entire time that he was, grooming and abusing me, that's all he was doing. I don't know. I was off in college for 6, 7 months of that. Like, I don't know what was going on with his students my entire freshman year of college, like who he might have been trying to start the next grooming, right? Like working on the next kid. With you, for certain that that was happening, correct?
Yes, thank you for bringing this up because wow, so much to get into here. I graduated 2008. After I graduated, I would still hear all the time about students, and I, of course, would be a little bit jealous about some of the students that he talked about, especially the girls, because it was always only the girls who he
Mhm.
would talk about of how talented they were and the drama that was going on with the paper. Again, thinking back of all this stuff that he made such a big deal out of, like he was running the New York Times or something, like the amount of drama and like bitching that he would do about the kids in journalism and what they weren't doing right, and all this just dramatic bullshit. Yeah, so I would hear a lot about students, and then anytime, like, the trips would come up because he would do, like, a yearly out of state, uh, high school journalism convention, that was a sensitive time, because in me, there was some part of me that was like, "Oh, well, he did this once with you, bitch, like, he could do it again,"
Mhm.
and there was always, like, that fear and always wanting to be, like, the special one, like,
'Cause
being in
you
competition with kids. Mhm.
Sorry, because you didn't know about me at this point, correct? Like, you didn't know that he'd had a relationship
Correct.
with another student before you?
I knew of you because he talked about you.
Ugh.
And he talked about the story of how you guys went to a graveyard together, and I remember, like, when he told me that story, my ears perked up because immediately I was thinking like, "Well, who is this person, and where's she come from?" And I gathered enough information to know that you were a former student. He just, like,
Okay.
talked about you a lot.
Just wanted to ask that question because yeah, so you're basing your, I don't wanna say jealousy because that seems, like, shitty towards you, but your distrust solely off of your experience with him of, okay, he did this with me, he could do it again, and,
Yeah.
when was your first experience of, like, truly seeing or hearing something that you were like, "The fuck is going on?"
I knew that he had close relationships with former students in Iowa because he talked about it, and there were pictures of, like, him and, former students, like, on his fridge. But, yeah, so, like, it wasn't a secret, like, he made it clear that he was, like, friendly, with a lot of former students. So, like, there was always that in my head too of, like, okay, 1 plus 2 equals
Mm.
this, and I would say the first time that I really, like, felt something was happening was in it must have been 2013, 2014. There was even a and I say investigation with the biggest air quotes. Investigation. There was an investigation in either 2013 or 2014. I wanna say 2014 because another student, a male student that he had in his journalism class wrote this, like, letter saying that the teacher was being inappropriate with certain students, and I remember before that even happened, I would see text messages because I went through his phone, and I would see text messages of him and, like, one student in particular that where he was just too the flattery, like, was just, like, oozing out of this text message, like, it felt very familiar, like, it
Mm.
felt almost like a pickup line, like I was reading the same pickup line that was used on me, yeah, when everything went down with the quote unquote investigation, it was about this particular student. And at the time, I was a jealous girlfriend, and my judgment and my desire to be vindictive was like towards the student
Mhm.
and not towards the teacher. Me and this particular former student are now friends, and it is a lovely story. Maybe she'll come on one day, but it's really kind of wild how that all came to be full circle, how we've been in touch now all these years later. So, since the beginning, like after I graduated, I was jealous or nervous or whatever the word is. Like I had feelings about the students who were still there, the grade under me. Like there was always like this insecurity of I'm gone, but he just keeps getting classes after
Mhm.
classes of young girls who are smart and talented and pretty. Seeing some of the like text messages and hearing him talk about some of the girls one time, like I read an email and see, like, not talking about that out loud, like, that's the only relationship I've ever done something like that, like, going through
Well, because
private
you
information.
knew you were with a distrustful person, though. Like,
Yeah.
you
I knew I would
started a
find something.
relationship with a person who was literally committing a crime to date you.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? So, like, it makes sense that you would have been distrustful. He did not earn the right to be trusted.
For sure, but in the moment, like, in the moment, like, I did not realize, I was unable to see, like, "Oh, well, if I have to go to these extremes,
Sure.
then this is probably not a great relationship to be in."
No, but I mean, we've all been there. Like, shit, hindsight's 2020. You know what I mean? We've all been in situations where you look back and you're like, "Girl, why were you putting up with that?" Or like, "Why did you stay?" Or, "Yeah, why were you behaving in this manner?" Because it's true, you said it before, like, the person that you're with, and this could be friends, it doesn't have to just be a romantic partner, but the people that you are surrounding yourself by, you pick up on their energy and their behavior, and things get normalized, and it can be good things, right? Like, oh, I have a partner who likes to really go out and ride his bike or go for walks or whatever, volunteer. Well, I'm going to be a lot more likely to probably go on walks and ride a bike and volunteer, right? Or if you're with somebody that's like, I really like to get shit faced and smoke 2 packs of cigarettes every day and talk shit about everybody and like crap on things because it's easier than actually trying to make things, you're probably going to turn into a salty day drinker. You know what I mean? Because it's just inertia, like you're just around it, like you're just kind of absorbing it by proxy, right? So I think that there is some of that too of if you're with a volatile person, you're going to be more volatile. If you were with cuz there's no way he wouldn't have done that to you. I'm sorry, but like he would have gone through your shit in a heartbeat and snooped through your crap if he had thought anything was up with you. Like no doubt in my mind that he would have cuz he's a sneaky little sneak, you know? So it's like some of that I think
Mhm.
is just kind of a reflection of where you're at cuz I know when I was with the person that, my abusive relationship, like the way that I fought with him, I have never fought with anyone in my life because you meet people where they're at, right? Like if they keep upping the
Yeah.
ante, you have to keep fucking getting louder and they get louder and then you get louder. And now with my husband, I'm like, I would never in a million years fight with him the way that we fought because we respect each other and we treat
Mhm.
each
Yeah.
other with care. Like no one's trying to win the fight by saying the most horrible thing to the other person. Is what it's
Yeah.
like when you're in
Yeah.
an abusive relationship, like, it is
Yeah.
who can
I
make
have
the other
found
one bleed the
emails.
most. That's it.
Yes, that, like, it's us just going back and forth of just digs,
Mm,
digs at each
yeah.
other, and that this was, like, such a fucking impact, and I hate saying it out loud, but it was a really impactful quote, unquote, "relationship" that, like, shaped how I navigated
Mhm,
all my other future relationships. It really take a lot of unlearning of, like, "No, this is not actually how you're supposed to do things in
mhm.
a loving relationship with mutual respect."
And mutual power and mutual control. I mean, control and power kind of feels like the same thing, but, like, And that was kind of what I was asking before, of how has, this experience impacted your future relationships? Because I think that a lot of people, you and I have both experienced this. And I know it comes from a place of love when people say this, but they're like, well, now you can just get over it. Move on. It's
Mhm.
been 20 years. It's been whatever, 5 years, 15, 50, whatever the answer is for someone who might be listening in their situation. But you can't just move on. It's not like you got a flat fucking tire. Like, this is something that when you are a young person really can form your sexuality, the way that you have relationships with people, the way you relate to your own body, like the way that you keep secrets or you don't keep secrets, for you, maybe your relationship with alcohol. I mean, like, there's a lot of trickle
Mhm.
down through the rest of your fucking life. And that can be true of all relationships, obviously. But I think anyone that has experienced any kind of abuse, whether that's physical, mental, emotional, sexual, like, knows you are not the same person that you were before this happened to you. And you never will be. And so I think it's important to kind of acknowledge, yeah, like, how did this impact you? Because I know for myself, like, I didn't really come to terms with the fact that it had such long lasting effects on me until the last few years. Like, I had really
Mm.
compartmentalized it into like, this was this 1 year of my life, and it's shitty and it's gross and it's kind of embarrassing. And that is what it is. And it's like, nope, it's so much more. Unfortunately, it is so much more.
I left him, I was 25, and then I feel like after that I was just really lost. And I didn't know why. Like I didn't feel sad, like, I didn't miss him at all, like,
Mhm.
I was so happy to be out of that relationship by the time I was out of it. I met my current partner, Dan, a month after I left the teacher and immediately started crushing on Dan. So, like, there wasn't, like, that, "I miss him so much," kinda like,
Sure.
I kind of just and I see it now, but I was just really fucking lost. So many years of my life had been defined by him, like
Mhm.
all the things that he liked, all the things that he wanted to do, living at his place. Like, I didn't know where he started and I began. I just felt very, I don't know who I am, I don't know what I want. I had also just finished grad school, and so I was about to start this big chapter, like my new career, but I just felt so lost.
Yeah.
I mean, do you remember any kind of aftermath or haze after, like, getting out of that situation?
I feel like I am one of those women that once I've decided I am done with somebody, by golly gee whiz, I'm pretty much out. Like, I'm done. You smell terrible. You look terrible. Like, my body just goes like, ain't gonna happen. Like, it just kind of shuts, except for my high school boyfriend who I repeatedly fell for 1,000 times. Like, he was the only guy, but like every other dude, it was just like, yeah, like when I was done, I was done. So I don't, yeah, I had the same thing. I didn't regret it, but I I would say the most memorable thing for me was telling people that we had broken up because we were public, and every single person around me saying, "Good. That was really fucked up." Right? And feeling such an odd mix of like relief because nobody wants to have someone be like, "Oh no, I really like that guy." And like then you feel bad and you have to whatever, like, sometimes that can happen. But then also really being angry that nobody said anything while it was happening. And I know that's something I have really struggled with for the rest of my life of like, I am the kind of person that if I feel like you are in a bad relationship or I think that you are not getting treated the way that you should, especially if you are a woman that I care about, I will not hesitate to tell you that I think someone's dusty ass son could be treating you better. And not everybody appreciates my input and it doesn't always go great. And I now try to like, before I say anything, I now try to just be like, this is coming because I love you and I feel defensive for you, and like I want to protect you, so you can take what I'm about to say with a grain of salt. But I think a lot of that for me comes from a place of I was literally groomed and sexually assaulted by my fucking high school English teacher, and nobody said a word to me. Nobody. Like
Mm.
my parents, my siblings, like my closest friends, other teachers, like the administration, like someone from upper administration at our school saw us holding hands together at a fucking store like a month later after I graduated from high school. No one called. No one called to ask me a single question about
Mm.
that. Like that shit still to this day hurts and really pisses me off. And I know a lot of people are like, well, you were 18. And at that point, the stuff that happened before I was 18, nobody knew about. But like, you were an adult at that point, and if we had told you not to, you would have just got mad at us. And my point of view is, who fucking cares? Like, if I was going to get mad, like if I tell somebody something they don't want to hear and they get mad at me, but they hear it and it possibly saves them from a fucking terrible experience, I would be glad for that person to not go through that experience and hate me for the rest of their lives. Happy to do it. Sign me up. If the fucking
Mm.
alternative is you like me, but I just watched you walk into a fucking abyss, fuck that. So I'm real salty
Oh my
about
God.
that.
Yeah.
Like, that's the thing I remember the most, is just being really hurt by the idea that no one around me thought I had the fucking capacity to hear the truth.
I love and admire and respect that you are that bitch, Sarah. You were so right. Like if the option is, all right, I tell you what I'm seeing, you want to be mad at me, but maybe it helps you make an important decision and walk away from this relationship. Great. Maybe it hurts our friendship. Fine. That versus I will keep silent just so it doesn't affect our relationship, but that means I have to watch you now be in this really shitty relationship. Unfortunately, I think that is what most people do is they stay silent. They don't want to say anything to someone that they love and care about criticizing their partner, the person that they've chosen to be with. It's your perspective is one for sure, and it's just very, I think, very tricky. And I remember my when I did start talking about processing the grooming and abuse with my family, with my parents and my siblings, they did say stuff like along those lines of, "Well, we kind of tried to tell you and you wouldn't listen." And my response to that is like, "Well, the way that you tried to tell me was not the best approach. Like if you're going to be the person to not stay silent, shame is not the way to do it." Sarah, I think the way that like you said is a better approach, if not the best approach I've ever heard when it comes to having this kind of delicate conversation with someone. But I felt like the people that did try to have any kind of conversation with me, it was coming from like a place of being judgmental
Mm,
and like shaming me into getting out of the situation.
yeah. And I mean, I want to be careful that, yes, I don't want to say like it's anybody in my life's fault that this happened to me, or like, yeah, like that, or I'm blaming anybody else for what this teacher chose to do to me, because he is the one that perpetrated this crime and chose to do it. And honest to goodness, as much as I try to be like, it's coming from a place of love, would the high school me have listened? I don't know. You know what I mean? But it would be nice to be able to
Right.
look back and remember that someone tried. Like that would be, I don't think it would have necessarily stopped anything, but I don't know. And I think that's what's hard, is it's like I don't know because no one ever did it. Because when I was in my abusive relationship in
Yeah.
my 20s, I have a close friend that and we were super close at the time. And I remember saying to her, "Oh, well, I Googled the other day, like, am I in an abusive relationship?" And I took this quiz and like yada, yada, yada. And she just was like, "Sarah, if you have to Google that, the answer is yes." And it was just like that simple. But just having someone say,
Mm.
if you have to Google for a goddamn online quiz to take to figure out if you're in an abusive relationship, you're in an abusive relationship. Because if you weren't, you
Yeah.
would never think to do that. So like those that's the kind of friend or family member or something I wish I would have had at that time who would have just been like, well, that's fucked up. He won't, take you around town while you're still a student. Cause if it's totally fine, then why can't you go out together? Why can't he go to the prom with you? You know what I mean? Like pointing these things out or kind of, I don't know. I think it's an experience that a lot of, victims have of just, it's not just the person that hurt you. It's all the people around you and how they reacted to it or didn't react to it. Um, and we've all been those other people, right? Like, I'm sure I've not handled other people's trauma well. I can tell you confidently, I have not, right? Like, we are not saying we're perfect people that have never
Right.
fucked up the landing. I think it's just more of the idea of, yeah, what was that kind of first few months like coming out of the other end of it? And for me, like, I remember just being really, really, really angry. And my uncle like made a joke about it that summer. So I would have broke up with him in the spring, and then that summer we were together for a family thing, and he made some kind of joke about me and the teacher, right? And I just absolutely flew off the fucking handle and just screamed in his face and was just like, "Would it be funny if your 17-year-old daughter was getting fucked by her teacher?" And I just remember my whole family just going like pale white and just bug-eyed, and I was like, "Fuck all of you. Like, this isn't funny. It's not funny." Like, I was just
Mhm.
so angry, but it still took me so many years to get to the point where I didn't feel responsible for it. Like, it was like I was angry, but I was so embarrassed and, like, ashamed. Like, I carried so much of that for so long, and so I feel like that immediate afterwards was just anger, shame, spiral for a couple of months for sure. Did you have any of that, like, as you kinda got out of it?
It was a few months afterwards. Yeah, I just finished grad school. I was going to start working in my first school counseling job. My sister was engaged. Yeah, there was there was a lot of change, and I didn't know. Like, I didn't know what was happening internally. I didn't know how to deal with it externally. A few months after I left the abuser, the teacher, the abusive teacher, um I, was raped, and I got into a car accident, and I totaled my car, and I was just like, I engaged in some pretty bad self-injury. Like I said, I was just fucking lost. I had a lot of shame. I Yeah, it was definitely a difficult time, a lot of spiraling. And it probably wasn't until 3 or 4 years after I left him that I really started thinking about, like, getting help.
Mm,
And I didn't even, like, think about getting help for, like, the grooming or abusive relationship because I didn't, like, fully realize what it was. But just getting help for, like, putting my life together,
mhm.
back together. I felt like I got to a point where I just couldn't do it on my own, and I sought therapy in 2019.
Yay for
So, yeah, it
therapy.
was yay for therapy, and I'm still seeing the same person. She's amazing. So, yeah, I left him in 2015. Yeah, so it was about 4 years of just floating in no man's land.
Yeah, which, again, I think is understandable because you spent such a formidable, like, those are such important years, and, like, there's so much growth that happens at that time, and yours was really hijacked by a shitty person, and you were in a shitty relationship, so it makes sense that, there would be kind of a nuclear fallout literally as the aftermath of that, right? Because you're fucking free falling because you were being literally micro controlled by this person for
Mhm.
years and years and years and years. And then you got out, which is great, but then all of a sudden you're like untethered and you have all this trauma and you have all these bad behaviors that you've picked up from this person and you have, you know, your own shit of who you were before you met this person. Like, it's not like you were just a blank slate before you met him. So it makes sense that it would be such a rough transitionary time period. For me, I was in college and I had a lot of stuff just kind of distracting me. I did have a sexually fun summer, I will put it that way. After I left him, I will say that. That was a damn
Oh,
good summer.
that makes me
Woo!
so
That
happy.
was
Hell
it
yeah.
was a
Hell yeah.
age appropriate sexy summer. So I will say like that was I feel like I did go a little wilding. And my version of wilding is not wild by anyone else's measurements. I am like such a fucking dork. Like I am the mom of the friend group. I'm always like, let's drink some water and not text that boy. So, my version of crazy is pretty tame, but it was a good time. And it felt good to be around people my own age and to be making out with boys who were the same age as me. Like it really, I think was healing, right? To just kind of like go out and be a kid again and go and have fun because when you're dating somebody who's so much older than you, they're embarrassed that they're dating a fucking child and they don't want you to act like a child. And so you're constantly trying to act older than you are to like not embarrass them or to seem cool or you want them to think you're so fucking evolved. And it's like, you're not. And you shouldn't have to pretend to be. Like you're a kid, just go have fun. Like, yeah, go be
Yeah.
dumb and like have a good time. So yeah, I don't know. It's a weird time to think about that like after effect time period. Well, I think we covered a lot. I think it's interesting to kind of talk about the after high school aspect of it because within the police investigations and the school investigations into him, obviously the only part that they care about is what happened to us when we were in high school, what happened to us when we were his students. Um, and everything kind of after that graduation day doesn't matter because they can't really do anything about it legally, right? And the school districts can't do anything about it after the point that you're no longer one of their students. So I think there's value in talking about it because and it's something that we really haven't talked a lot about with others. Um, because nobody could put him in jail for, taking me to Disney World with his brother. Uh, but I think there is value in talking about it because it is such a bizarre experience. And, um, for you also it was like such a huge part of your life. I think it's worth kind of digging into. So I appreciate you sharing your story and hopefully listeners are, I don't know, learning things, intrigued, engaged. We don't know. But if other people's have experienced things like this, again, hopefully it's balm to the soul or validating in some way. I know that sometimes just talking about things and realizing you're not the only one that felt a certain way can really help you normalize your own emotions. And yeah, it's okay to be angry. It's okay to be sad. It's okay to be confused.
Yeah. And that is balm for the soul, BALM, not bomb, BOMB. Just to clarify, because I was confused the first time.
Like lip balm.
And I do think it is important to talk about what happened in the aftermath after we turned 18 and laws are different and
Mhm.
all of that. Because we hit this milestone birthday, doesn't mean that we were not still being abused. And yeah, so thank you for sharing a little bit about your life in your 20s as well. And I know today's episode might have been a little heavy for listeners. So, again, reminder just take care of yourself. A lot of resources out there. RAIN, RAINN.org is one of our fave
Mhm.
recommendations. I also had to take a sexual harassment training today to keep my counseling license active. And I learned of a new resource that
Ooh.
I've been looking around at. And this one is more for those who are maybe thinking about taking legal action, but there are also a little bit more just like general resources on this page. It's called helpingsurvivors.org. Says that they have helped more than 1,200 sexual assault survivors since 2023. So it's a fairly new organization, but check that one out as well.
Thank you for our listeners for tuning in. And we hope to have you with us next time.
Yes. Oh, and before I forget, I know that we keep mentioning that we have an email address, but we haven't actually read any emails. It's because time is a flat circle and the past, present, and future is happening all at once. And so even though we have been saying send in your emails and you're listening to this, we haven't actually received any, but we will. So keep sending them in when we actually release these episodes.
Got it.
And we get emails,
So
we will read them.
This is the past talking to the future. We hope to hear from you. Yeah, and as far as like writing in, questions, if you want to share your own experience or if you have input,
just groom scroll suggestions.
Yes, groom scroll suggestions.
Okay, well, thank you for listening, and just bye.
So he made this last year, and I think I've decided it's my like signature birthday cake. It is an orange cake that also has Earl Grey tea in it, and then it has chopped up like dark chocolate candy bar chocolate in it.
Stop.
And then
orange chocolate, come on.
Yeah, and then you do a Earl Grey infused whipped cream on top. Yeah,
you can't see right now, but I am licking my nips.
I can't see anything. There you go. Raise them up.
That sounds so tasty.
It is. It's a really good cake. So.